I like it.
Cool, man. Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yes, sir. So let's hop into your story and your good work. Let's begin with 5 years ago, COVID. It was really raging. We didn't know where it was going to go. So ultimately, how did you survive a pandemic and how is it reverberated into your work and life today?
Ironically, not ironically, is all about my wife. And let me explain. I've been working with couples for, at that point, about 15, 16 years with money, finances. And I started as a financial advisor and realized very early on that a lot of the couples I worked with had marital problems. And so I did a psychology degree and then a PhD in marriage and family with an emphasis in money and trying to figure out, well, why are couples arguing about this? And how do couples that are doing this really well, what do they do? So, as I was looking at COVID, I had spent the last few years actually public speaking. I found a lot of clients through going out and speaking. I'd speak for free and still bring in tens of thousands of dollars in new clientele. I would go out and speak for a fee and still bring in clientele. It was great. It just, the stages were the place to be. And I was starting to write a book. I'm like, okay, this is the next leg. This is where I want to go. I want to write a book and become more popular so I can speak more places, etc. And that's when COVID hit. I just finished my manuscript and I started looking around at publishers. And at the same time, I had all these places calling me, "Hey, Travis, this COVID thing, we're going to go ahead and cancel our engagement. And by the way, we want our deposit back." And I'm like, "Oh, let's look at the contract. By the way, act of God, you can't just, ask me for money back, add insult to injury." I saw that my company was slowly dying. And then about March and April, it was dying fast and hard, because that was my business model, man. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I looked at my wife and I said, "Honey, we have some decisions to make, some really big decisions to make. I could go back and be in academia and take a job there, and maybe move across the country or something. We could go live in your, you know, mother's, home for a while and try to regroup and sell everything and just fire sell it and take a loss and bankruptcy." Or I said, "You know what? Or we could both say, let's get our heads out of the sand where everyone else's is right now, and let's weather this storm because I think we're going to end up on top." And she said, "Listen, I know you're supposed to be helping married couples. I know this is what your business calling is. And I am here every step of the way. I don't care if we have to live destitute, if we have to sell everything we own. Like, let's be all in." And I was like, that's it. That's what I needed. And I remember us walking down the street because we walk and talk after dinner every night. Our kids clean up. We have a big family. They all have responsibilities. And that's our time to go and connect about the day. Hey, how was your day? How was your day? And then we can at least put some pieces together. Right. And it was one of those nights. I'm like, "Hey, we've got a few $1,000s left in our account. What do we do?" She's like, "Let's pay the mortgage. Let's pay some bills, and let's take the rest of that and let's invest it. Let's invest it in you and in the business." And I'm not going to say that tomorrow everything was rosy and fine, the day after. It wasn't. But about 30 days later, we had turned the business into a whole, we pivoted. Everybody was like, "Pivot, pivot, pivot." But it turned out to be three times as productive. Not double, three times as a productive year compared to the year before when I thought things were just amazing, speaking from stage and doing all these things. And I was working from home. And we did over, three times the gross revenue. It was crazy because that was like April on. That was 3 quarters.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. But here's the thing. It wasn't about the different marketing strategy. It wasn't pivoting at the right time. It wasn't all the podcasts that I was on. It wasn't the fact that everybody was at home and I could reach them via the internet so much faster and easier, and they were on social media wondering what to do. That was part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's part of it. And I think it was a little lucky. But I believe that luck is when opportunity and preparation meet.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of luck. But if my wife had said, "Nah, I want this. I want to be comfortable, and I don't see this happening, I would have said, okay, I want you to be happy. I want us to be happy together. I don't want to put you through that. But she was willing and she was ready. Quite honestly, my friend Joe, I have done over 1,600 interviews with business owners. And when couples are on the same page financially and in business, they are synced. You know, they don't have to do everything together, don't have to agree on everything. But if they're heading in the same direction together, they are 10 times plus productive than all the other couples that I've ever seen and worked with and tried to help. Like it's night and day difference. The research shows it. My experience and coaching, if, business owners in all 50 states, and the research behind my book, Marry and Grow Rich, shows that. So I can't just go out and say, yeah, here's my book. Go get Marry and Grow Rich. It's awesome. But it's really based in our personal experience and what we have seen in our own lives. Had we not had that pivotal moment, there would have been no pivoting. There would have been no triple, production. There would have been no global outreach that we have now. It would have died, and nobody would. We wouldn't be talking today.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do right now in 2025 on a daily basis. I'm going to do that by putting you in front of fifth grade students. It's career day, and one of the kids is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I love it. I've actually done this. This is so fun. Um, you know, I help adults talk about money so that they can be successful with money. And that's the basics. But the adults that I help are business owners, and they're typically like they're doing well, quote unquote, on paper. Most of them are already doing six figures. I'm not helping people start up ideas. I'm not helping them figure out ideas. I'm usually helping them where they're already experts in something, but they're struggling to get to that next level. They're struggling to triple their business. They're struggling to 10x their business. And a lot of times it's because they're working too much in the business instead of on the business. And when the spouse is not on board, it just complicates things because you could make a lot of money and bring it home. But if the spouse, is not on board with where you're headed with that, and the two of you are not in this going in the same direction personally, financially, then you're going to take the stress back to work. You're going to be less productive, and vice versa. If there's stress at work, you're going to bring it home. So one of the core tenets I have is first, know what your own blocks and limiting beliefs are. Second, be on the same page financially with your spouse. Third, be super productive at work and get off the field. I call it the field of business, or out of business, and start working on the business. That's the only way you're going to scale and grow.
So, what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream life?
It's really funny. As a kid, as a kid, yeah, I wanted to be an astronaut, a plumber like my dad. Like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was an entrepreneur. I did paper routes. I did weed services for anybody, grandmas, neighbors. I refereed soccer, and then I'd go play my game, and I go back. I'd make good money. I make $20 an hour refereeing soccer. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, the secret sauce. So I was always doing something to earn money on my own. Um, and when I was 12, you wouldn't believe this because it seems like, oh yeah, right, you're just making that up. But I told people, and I felt a spiritual calling to this, Joe, that I wanted to be a public speaker. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to get in front of people. Now, the hard thing about that is when you tell other people, especially when you're that young, people look at you like, "Oh, okay, you're some know-it-all." Like, "Oh, like especially when you're that young, like kids don't understand. My family members, I have an older sister, and I confided in. I'm like, I want to be a professional public speaker, and she's like, "You're going to be great." So for me, when I became an international speaker, and I've spoken all over the country and even in the UK, and now on podcasts, this is speaking to me. While it's an interview, it's still speaking. And I've been professionally trained by some of the best speakers in the world, and I love this. I really really enjoy it. Um, However, with a large family, we have 8 children. I can't go around and speak about balance and being on the same page and being there with your kids and being a family man um, right now, to me, it would be the biggest hypocritical thing I could do. So I'm very selective. I speak a few times a year. I do more podcasting. I do more interviews on webinars and these things virtually so I can be here with my family.
Yeah.
And then I spend that time with my family traveling all over the place. So I think the biggest speeches I give now are not on stage. It's behind microphones like this, and it's in my actions of this is how you can do it. I tripled the business during that COVID year, spending 25 hours a week working. To me, that's the new flex. I I don't care about the bling. I don't care about the 7, 8 figure revenue if I'm not there with my family and if I don't teach them about life and God and experiences over things. My son right now, yesterday, my wife and I sent him off on a humanitarian trip to Africa, and our schedules didn't work out. Otherwise, we would have gone with him, but we sent him with some amazing people. Why? Because we want him to have that life changing experience.
Yeah.
I could give him a brand new car, I could give him stuff, but that just creates entitlement a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And even these experiences, we have to be careful. He pays 50% of it, and we'll come in as parents and say, "All right, we'll match because it's expensive, but we want you to show up. We want skin in the game." So for me, dude, the biggest thing, and this is a long answer. Yes, public speaking is awesome, but the time and season right now for me is not full time. I'm not. You're not going to see me on the circuit. You're not going to see me out there. So what I've done now is I'm doing events here. I'll do them virtually, and now I start bringing people to, Cache Valley, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm starting to do retreats in places like Costa Rica and Scandinavia, where I'm bringing people with as couples, as families, to give them those experiences so that they can make changes in their life. And then I'll do some speaking while we're with them.
So the two things that you're helping people with are probably some of the most foundational glues that exist in our lives. A healthy relationship and a relationship with money. And those are things that are simply not taught in any curriculum at all, right? So take me back to your childhood. How did these foundational elements of these becoming your focal point and getting really good at it and helping people get better at it? How did this happen?
Did you read my journal this morning?
Maybe.
No, I don't. I was actually just writing about this morning. I'm writing more of a spiritual book for a different audience, more of a Christian based audience. And I was pulled back to this idea of how scriptures oftentimes are misunderstood by good Christian believers, like almost of any faith, really. It doesn't have to be just in Christianity, but a lot of times we misunderstand money because of our misunderstanding of what Christ was trying to teach in the Gospels. And so I was writing about this. I'm like, why am I here? Why am I writing about this? I have spent decades studying this. I call them the money scriptures. And I found out that the psychology of most believers and Christian and faith-based people is because of what they think they understand in scripture. They think that money's evil. They think that money's bad. They think that the rich young ruler was somehow chastised because of his money. It wasn't any of those things. It was something deeper. It was that the love of God should be higher than the love of money. God can give us anything. It's a stewardship, right? So, but what is the root of that? That's what you're really asking. And I've spent, like I said, decades like searching through what I call the money scriptures and found out the reason why is because growing up, I saw my parents. They loved each other. They loved me. They made that very clear. They taught me gospel. They taught me about family, taught me about hard work. They taught me some amazing things, and I love them. I have a great relationship with both of them. Not perfect, but great. And over those years, I've reflected and realized that as a young kid, I was second. I was number two in the family as far as kids go. There were six of us, six kids, and my sister and I were just 13 months apart, almost Irish twins, almost. But I saw a lot of my growing pains of my parents, and I saw that the number one thing that they actually didn't agree on a lot of the time, actually most of the time, was money. They fought about it, not like fist fights, but it was verbal, and we saw it and we felt it. And it wasn't just the lack of money, because when there was money, my dad was an entrepreneur, and I loved that. I love being able to have time freedom and idea freedom and all these things, money freedom. There's no income limit, right? To what you can provide. Yet at the same time, there were downs and there were ups. I found out later as a kid that a lot of the financial issues though were related to health. I have three siblings, three of the six that have something called PKU. PKU is a genetic disorder where both parents have to be a carrier. It's not something. It's not like oh well, you have fair skin or blue eyes or red hair. Like that's all me, right? I get that because of the recessive genes. Those are all recessive, in fact. Um, but a carrier means that one in a million has this genetic defect and they carry it, and the other one's like one in a million. So the fact that three of the six have positive PKU is just insane.
Yeah.
I don't even know this. I don't even know how to calculate that. That's credible. I'd have to be a mathematician to sit down and figure that out. But insurance didn't cover that. Insurance didn't cover the bills, the procedures, the formulas, the visits with doctors and specialists and new treatments. And my parents went to the ends of the earth to try to figure out how to help their children because the result of this is actually mental retardation. And this is interesting. Like, what does that have to do with money? Well, the fact that none of this was covered and my parents were willing to sacrifice anything meant that my dad, every time he got an opportunity, when equity was high in the house, he refied the home. And he took all that cash and paid off the bankruptcy that should have been with the health bills, right? My parents would go into debt over all of these things because they cared so much about their children and their mental health and their well-being and their growth and development that it was like money is just a thing. We're just gonna figure this out. And because of that, there was less money. And it wasn't just like, oh, you have six kids. My dad was a successful business owner. He ran a plumbing business, and most people are like, well, you guys must be rich, because they know how much plumbers charge. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, very modest home, very modest living, because I found out because of that. In addition, I was 15, 16 years old. I'll have to go back and check this. I wrote this down. Like, was I 16? Was I 15? Regardless, my dad broke his neck. 2 months prior to that, the business, for whatever reason, made a decision to not carry disability insurance. So for close to a year, my dad had no income. And it was a family owned business. What does that do to the family relationships?
Yeah.
Especially when he was the core of the service based plumbing business. They had to refigure out everything. They had to design stuff around what was going on. My dad had no money to try and pay for all the medical things that were piling up. The bills were just coming in. Threats of bankruptcy, threats of liens on the home. Like, I name it, just boom, 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 boom. I later found his journal writings, and you just read what he wrote that he'd never shared with most of us in the family, maybe with my mom, just made me weep. I felt so bad. And I realized at 15, 16 years old, I actually raised my hand and said, Dad, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I'm willing to leave high school and, I'm willing to work full time. I don't even like high school. And he's like, no, you're staying in school. You're doing these things. And like, it wasn't really like my way out. But at the same time, like I knew the financial impact this was going to have on our home.
Yeah.
And I was scared.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. And my dad didn't know. And my mom's like, well, now what? Like, she's not going to go back to work and get a job, but she did some part time work and we all helped out as much as we could. It was a stressful time.
Yeah.
So, looking back at it, I can see my parents arguing about money, that very specific thing happening with my dad drove me to really find out about money, read everything I could about money, geek out on it, be the guy that's going to finally crack this nut, right? Because I didn't want all those problems in my marriage, in my family. And the funny, ironic part about all this is having to go get a PhD and take a family of then eight through that process. PhD just stands for piled, higher, and deeper. Okay, like it like I brought the same kind of stress upon myself with the debt, probably that my dad is experiencing, just in a different route. Now, I do believe there's difference in debt and liability. Like to me, I viewed my education and mentorship as an investment. It's a liability. I see it as a business liability, but it was an investment in me and my education so I could get the root of all this to turn around now and coach and help others through this process. So if I look back and I can see what happened, not only in my childhood, but in my teenage years, and then the last thing, when I became a financial advisor to try and help other people, um, is when my father actually, at age 49, 2 weeks shy of 50, we were planning his 50th birthday. It was going to be a surprise. We're going to bring all these people. It's going to be awesome. He died of a heart attack, a stress related heart attack.
Wow.
And we were just stunned. The guy was in simply like like the best health of his life. He was doing amazing. He was riding hundreds of miles on his road bike every week. It wasn't the exercise that killed him. It was the fact that he had something called the widowmaker, which means one of his arteries was 90% clogged and he had no clue. Traditional blood testing, blood pressure tests would never figure it out because your body kind of just absorbs that and it's like, okay, this is something we're going to deal with, and the other arteries are pumping faster, and you know. So when we got the autopsy back, I was like, you've got to be kidding me! How did this happen? And the only thing, Joe, that I could figure out, and I'm still figuring it out, is that maybe the standard American diet is big. So we changed our diet. We're eating much healthier for the last 16, 17 years. And I mean, people will call that radical in of itself. But the other part is just stress, stress in general. That's what led me to do a master's in psychology. I want to understand motivation, goal setting, stress. Being a business owner is stressful. Pile on top of that all the things I just mentioned about money and health and the business and being on disability before you come back after a year, like not having that income, taking more debt, like it just piles up. And if all we do is like hold it inside, which most men we do, we just hold it. We don't share it. It's our protection. Like, no, I'm gonna be stoic. I'm gonna protect everyone. I'm not gonna share this with my spouse, with my family, with anybody because that's what I've been trained to do. It's a protection mechanism. It's good, but it's bad, right? And so I believe that that's really what's happened. And so I love my dad and I miss him like crazy. There was over 1,000 people standing room only at his funeral. Um, but that experience, speaking at his funeral, having to write an obituary for my 49-year-old father when I was 25, being a financial advisor who thought I'm just selling insurance and mutual funds, to turn around and be like, my very first death claim was my own father. I had to call that insurance company, send the death certificate, buy the burial plot, pick out the casket, go to the, dress his body for burial, plan everything. Why? Because my mom was a mess, as one could imagine. After 26 years of marriage, 27 years of marriage, that she was just a mess. I had to do everything. And then 2 weeks later, I started to grieve. 2 weeks later, I could start like, okay, after helping mom through all this. And now I see it on the other end. And I see not only the stress, what it's done, but the money problems, what it's done to my parents and marriage. And again, great people. You would just be like, wow, these are very happily married people, but they're arguing about what the number one thing that every couple argues about is money. But then you exacerbate business ownership, entrepreneurship, all the other things we talked about, and it is just a recipe for sudden death.
So, of all of these things that you've evolved into, everything you've achieved in your life, what are you the proudest of?
So that said, um, that made me reevaluate my entire life. That moment where I had to write my dad's obituary, and I actually went through an exercise I'm sure a lot of people have done, but I call it the mini obituary. I did it a little different. I didn't focus on, hey, when I die, how I'm going to die. I just said, hey, at the end of my life, who do I want to be? Because having to write that for my dad, that was very humbling and difficult experience. And I realized that the most important, it wasn't in achievements. It's not achieving something. And none of us carry to our grave. Like I picked out my dad's gravestone. None of us write down 7-figure business owner, famous author. Like none of that matters. Besides, it's too long to put on a gravestone
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And famous people, like, okay, you just know who they are and maybe what they're for. But generations later, they're not gonna know. They're not gonna know.
Yeah.
Maybe they take a picture of it and throw it in Chat GPT or whatever we have at that point, and they figure out who you are. What actually matters is what God thinks and what your family think. Those are the two most important things in my life. So if I live this life, no matter what I do to help people, no matter what I do to make a living, if God is not accepting of what I've become, and I failed. Now God is accepting. He has grace. He has mercy. But I want to know what is it that he wants me to become so I can do it. I believe everyone on this planet has a mission. We're not here because of chance. We're not here because of any other random thing. We're here because we're meant to be here. This time, this place, these family, like everything. But I do believe we have our agency and we can choose or not. And so I want to choose and I want to have a life where at the end of my life, somebody would write an obituary like I did about my dad. He nailed it.
Yeah.
He was loved by everyone.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing to me. And then number two, and I'll let you jump in. Number
Yeah. Yeah.
two
No,
is
you're good.
my family. Like I want my family to be like, that was the greatest man in my life.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, like I failed. And having that just ripped out for me, my dad, we had a great relationship. Wonderful. And I wouldn't be tearing up if I didn't think about that relationship that we still have. I'll see him someday.
Yeah.
It's taken me a lot of time, like to really to come to grips with that, and I still miss him. But I want that for my own family, and I want my boys to be that to their wives and to their kids, and I want my five daughters to marry somebody that is going to treat them with respect and love and kindness and allow them to be the person that they need to be in their life. I don't want them to hold them back or anything else, and I want to be that example. The most important example in their life is me
Yeah.
because girls will marry their dad and boys, regardless of how much they say they don't want to be like their dad, they will be their dad someday. Um, Hopefully, just the good parts.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly. So, speaking of money and spending, what was the first big purchase that you made in your life?
That's a good question. Hmm, probably my truck.
Okay. I figured it might be a car.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's a big. I mean, I guess a mountain bike or snowboard would
Yeah.
probably like at that time, like as a teenager, that's probably the biggest thing. And then third, yeah, it's probably my truck. Before I was married, I was married at 22. My wife was 20. So then we started making those decisions together. And then I sold that beloved truck so that I could pay for education and for our first child coming along. I thought that was a responsible thing to do when you're in school. I can walk.
Yeah. Right.
I can ride my bike.
Yeah.
I don't need that cool thing that gets me all over the place. But yeah, those are probably it. That tells you where my priorities were as a single guy, like four wheeling,
Sure.
mountain biking, snowboarding. Like I still do those things now. I have a
Yeah.
bigger truck, a better snowboard, and a much better bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my fun things I
I
like to
dig it.
do.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So at the end of the day, Travis, everyone has this perception of you, family, friends,
Yeah.
clients, everyone that gets your book, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I'm a family man.
Yeah.
That's it. So everything that I've written, Achieving Balance, my first book, this was all about guys figuring out, and even gals, like as a business owner, that time is their most important asset. Use it wisely, not just to be a workaholic. Even though if you love your work, it doesn't matter. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
It's part of you. You're a provider for your family, but you're a husband and you are a father and you're a son of God. Like those are the things that really, really matter the most. And then two, this book, Marry and Grow Rich, is all about the most important relationship on earth, I believe, and that is your own spousal relationship. And I want to do that right. And I want the world not to know it's not just about communication. It's not about just like making financial decisions well together. It's about developing together. It's not about two people separately living lives and then, cohabiting even under a marriage legal arrangement. I don't care what you think about that. To me, it's about how do we set and achieve and become together as a married couple. I'm going to write another book, and I mentioned this only in one other podcast. And this book is going to be about money with your children. How do you help them to see the world with an abundance mindset? with a stewardship from God, that these are things that we need to take care of, and how that if they understand truly who they are, what their values are, and you can convey those values to that next generation, how it'll help them to become the individuals and eventually the adults that they need to be. Because it's that you talk about money and marriage not being taught. Well, we're not even teaching this in our own homes. We're not even teaching this in schools. Let me start on that. Like we're not teaching anything close to this. We have to step up as parents and quit yelling at the public school system to say you're not teaching this. We need to be teaching this in our home. We need to be the examples of this first. We homeschool, so that helps.
Yeah.
It really does. And I know not everybody can. I'm not saying everybody should. I don't like to do that. I'm not blanket statementing here, but I do believe it should happen first in the home, regardless of where your kids go to school, because they're going to find opposition to this in every setting humanly possible.
Yeah. So, Travis, if anyone wants to reach out, they have
Yeah.
questions, they want to get your books, any of the good business, where do they go?
Yeah, they go to maketimeinstitute.com. It has my podcast. It has my books, Achieving Balance, Marry and Grow Rich. It has my coaching. My blog is there, all the good stuff. But for specifically for your audience, if they want to get my book, Marry and Grow Rich, they can also go to Marry and Grow Rich, spelled out, book.com. So Marry and Grow Rich book.com. Yes, you can find it on Amazon. You can find both my books on Amazon.
Yeah.
But if you go to my website, I'll give it to you for $4.95 as an ebook download, and I throw in the audio and a workbook. Tremendous value. For $4.95, you can't really beat that. Of course, there's going to be some other things I want to throw at you, like a course and other things. If you want to buy it, that's fine. But that's there. You go to Amazon and buy it for $20. I'd recommend you go to marryandgrowrichbook.com.
Okay, I will put that in the show notes. Thank you for this wisdom you're dispensing on very essential parts of our existence that will make things easier. This has been wonderful. I love your energy, what you're doing. Thank you so much for opening up your world a little bit today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. All right, man. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.